Hey there, I'm Kelly Cohen, and you're listening to the Orlando Real Podcast.
I just finished up a fantastic conversation with Kelly Cohen. She's a partner at the Southern Group, and she's behind the finances, politics, and development of so many big things happening here in Central Florida. We talked about politics and development and downtown and so many other cool things happening in Central Florida. I hope you enjoy it. Kelly, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ken. I am so jazzed to be in this room with you.
I feel like every room that I go in around Orlando, people are like, do you know Kelly? Do you know Kelly? And you touch a little bit of everything, politics, business, development, all types of stuff in our area. And so before we get into sort of Orlando and growth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm super excited to hear I'm one name, Kelly.
Just Kelly Cohen, yeah. It's like Madonna, it's like Cher.
Yeah.
It's just Kelly, yeah.
Aspirational,
Yeah.
if you will. I came here over 20 years ago. I met a little known guy, State Senator Buddy Dyer.
Yeah.
So Buddy hired me in March of 2002.
Yeah.
And I was a statewide finance director for the Attorney General's race.
Okay.
We traveled all across the state, got to meet incredible people. Unfortunately, he lost. Yeah, so he lost for Attorney General, but that loss ended up being Orlando's win because he ran for mayor.
Yeah.
And I had the great fortune to work on that race, which ultimately changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
And we've been really lucky to have him as mayor for over 20 years, where he's impacted the city in many, many ways.
That's so cool. So you're not from Orlando originally then?
I'm not
that
at all.
race brought you here.
Yeah.
And you just never left.
I never left. And you know what's funny? I was reflecting, when I first got here, this is not at all where I thought I would end up. I grew up in South Florida, which was definitely a sexier, more vibrant energy, especially 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
And I certainly thought Orlando did not have the sparkle that I needed to really build a career and create a life. I only knew it for certain aspects of the community. And so I was really hesitant when I got here. And I thought it was just going to be like a blip on the radar in my professional journey. But what happened was, as I was deciding what I was going to do after he won for mayor, I went to a group of mentors, and they were really passionate about the opportunities that Orlando presented. They said Orlando was like the LA of the 1960s. This was a growing, thriving opportunity for me. It had really interesting economics, and that I should seriously consider staying. And I did, and it's worked out pretty well.
I would say so. And so over the past 20 years, what are some of the things that maybe you've had your hands in or you're really proud of kind of seeing come to pass?
One of my favorite things about Orlando is that when you move here, you can automatically get involved and engaged. And I think you're actually a great testament to that. You can come here. We don't have the legacy families or the pay to play or cost of entry here. I think you can come here and get involved and engaged.
That's a soundbite right there. I mean, I agree with you. That's one of the reasons we looked at a lot of different cities around Florida to move to 9-10 years ago, my wife and I, and we looked at Orlando and we said, it seems like it's still ripe for growth, and there's not so many so overly established families and things already here. There's just opportunity everywhere you look.
There is opportunity, and we want new people. We're a young city. Mayor Dyer often says the best days are ahead of us. And I think you can feel that energy. We have some of the pains of a younger city.
Sure.
But for me, I think people enthusiastically welcome new faces and new businesses and new ideas. And you don't hear a lot, oh, that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that provides a real energy in our community.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some of the things that you've seen that maybe have not happened yet? Then, we have opportunity, and that word gets thrown around a lot, right? Opportunity is possibly what you maybe could one day do something, right? And I think that people have these visions of downtown or these visions of Central Florida, and yet some of them haven't come to pass yet, but have right there. Westcourt would be a good example. There's a lot of really cool projects around town, but where do you feel like we still have room to grow?
So I think what we've done well, which I'll start with, is, I think what we've done well is we have incredible venues, right? We have downtown venues that you can walk to, that you can have world-class sporting events, you can have world-class concerts, you can have that experience. We have one of the hottest job markets in the country. People are moving here. We're leaders in modeling and simulation. We have the semiconductor space. We have professional services. Orlando is always in the top 5, if not the top place for growth, GDP growth, and jobs.
I'm surprised to see how low our unemployment is, actually, even through all of things going on in the economy right now. And it's because you think, hospitality and tourism might be they're not struggling, but it's just not as on fire as it was 3 years ago when everybody was coming here. But we have diversified a little bit, would you say, over the past 22 years?
100% we have. But what's also great is we embrace our tourism ecosystem. It's incredibly important.
It is.
And we have like thought leaders from Disney to Universal to what's happening with the convention space, what's going on with our airport. Like our tourism ecosystem is a backbone of our community that allows for a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
And anyone, I mean, when you look at the numbers, like I think in 2024, almost 74 million people came through Orlando. 58 million people came through our airport.
Yeah.
Most communities would die to have that.
Of course, yeah.
We have great main streets. We have great parks. There's so many exciting things here. But to your question, what are we missing? I think we still have to continue to diversify our economy. You highlighted there's good things that are happening, but, we still are known, again, we have the stigma. When you say you're from Orlando, there's certain things that come up.
Yeah.
And so I think, we have to diversify our economy and continue to put the stake in the ground on different industries. Obviously, our central business district is struggling a little bit.
Sure.
And, I think the great news is other pockets of our community are thriving. You and I have discussed this in the past. I mean, the
Those main streets are crushing it right now.
They're crushing it. It's where all the young professionals are. It is where all the Michelin restaurants are. I mean, the energy in the main streets is just beyond.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you look at Mills, you look at Thornton Park, you look at the whole downtown area outside of Central Business, or even where we're at today. I mean, you're here in downtown Winter Garden. There's new buildings popping up everywhere down here, and they're leasing out fast with new restaurants going in the bottom, and you're just like, it's an interesting difference, like good or bad, right? I mean, we would love to see the downtown core be a lot more of that, but it is great to see that you can get outside of the tourism area, outside of just the downtown area, and enjoy some of that, like suburbia, but not too far away from everything else.
But it's great, whenever I've had the opportunity to bring CEOs, I've had the opportunity to bring media leaders, and when I drive them around Central Florida, they're just in awe.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's Winter Garden is a suburb, but walking here today, the streets are packed.
Yeah.
It is like a tiny little vibrant community with great retail, great food. I'm walking around it with people of all ages, and it's really exciting. And we have pockets like that all over. When you go to Winter Park, when you go to Lake Nona, when you go to the main street. So I think what's so exciting is you can really find your vibe. It's a great place for families. It's a great place for young professionals, and it's a great place to start a business. I think what's cool is Orlando, I believe, is the youngest city in the state with the average age. I believe the average age is 34.
Yeah. I gotta look at that. That's a great stat. I'm gonna put that down to follow up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Take it for
please.
your materials. But it was. I mean, Orlando has the youngest population.
Sure.
Which is awesome.
It is great. I mean, the fact that we've got, I think UCF is a big contributor to that. You've got Walt Disney World, biggest single site employer in the country, maybe the world at this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are younger college kids that some of them stay, some of them, leave. But I think we got that really good mix of everything. I do think it's interesting, the comments around like when you tell people you're from Orlando, they're like, oh, or like, oh, you must love Disney. That's like the first thing. We actually just interviewed Joe DeCina, who was from Spartan Race last week. And he was like, I'm supposed to be this like hard guy. And I tell people from Orlando and they're like, oh, like, I want to be able to say that we have this backbone of tourism and hospitality and we need to tell the rest of that story, which is kind of what we're here for.
No, you do an incredible job of that because again, when you peel back the layers here, there is so many cool things and so many cool people doing interesting things. And UCF is, it is a gem.
It is.
It is continuing, they just got preeminence. The focus now on the engineering and AI side of it is incredible.
Yeah.
They pivoted to that. I mean, they are putting out world-class students, and those students get real-life opportunities here, which is very exciting. I mean, Orlando's a real city.
Yeah.
And so, like, as compared to other places, kids that move here can get mentorship, they can get internships, and they can get jobs because we're hiring.
Yeah, of course. That's something I need to get even better at myself is working with UCF and explaining, hey, listen, if they come here, I'm sure they do a good job behind the scenes, but like the story of you don't just come here, go to school here and leave. It's you can come here, go to school here, stay here, build a family, build a career, all of that stuff. And I think that's again the untold story that I think more people should hear.
Well, we have I think one of the things, and Sheena Fowler talks about this, and I think you've talked to her, and incredible. Again, young, energetic leader in our community who is having conversations about our tech ecosystem, right? But like what we're talking about is we have the modeling and simulation side here, right? We also have the entertainment side here.
Yeah.
We also have the defense industries here.
Yeah, which
And
pair
now-
really well together. That's the crazy, the
Exactly.
simulation system of like,
Yes.
hey, it's great for theme parks. It's also great for defense. It's kind of interesting that those two pair well together, but they do, and they're both here. So
And it sets up us for the economies of the future.
Totally.
From the AI side, again, what's happening, for us, another really great part of living in Central Florida is our regional approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will say, I have an opportunity to work all throughout the state. Our firm has now 70 employees, 12 offices in 5 states.
Yeah.
And we work at local, state, and federal. So I get to see it all.
Sure.
But what I will tell you is Central Florida is very special because we will cross county lines to do things. And so we have Osceola, we have Seminole, we have Lake, we have Polk, we have Volusia. We're all kind of working together to build this very robust economy. And so the semiconductor space that Osceola has is also at the heart of a future economy.
Agreed. Yeah, NeoCity is going to be really
Right.
fantastic, especially as it continues to build out.
100%. And that also complements some of the things that are happening in Orange County with the defense and the modeling and simulation and the entertainment side.
Yeah.
And so as we pair these things together, we're really well poised to be a leader from a national perspective.
This episode of the Orlando Real Podcast is brought to you by my real estate team, the Posick Group. Check us out over on Google. We've got over 1,700 5-star reviews. When the time comes for you to buy, sell, invest here in Central Florida, we want to be your real estate resource of choice. Make sure you reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real to get started.
Did you go to the Nashville trip with us? Were you
Yeah.
there as well? One of the things that they had talked about there was that they felt like that they nailed was that regional center. It wasn't just Nashville, the city, but it was actually the county and everything else kind of working in congruency. And I remember on that trip, people were talking about how like here, that's like maybe the one thing we could still work on is that the businesses might work together, but getting the communities and the counties to work better together would actually allow some of like the infrastructure plans to happen and some of that. Have you seen a pushback, or is that just do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's like with all the growth that we've had, there's a lot of challenges. So sometimes the counties have to focus on their residents,
them,
right?
yeah.
And also they have to figure out financially how to invest in their communities.
Sure.
There's certain things, how you invest cross-party lines. But I do think, like the trips that you're talking about or the meetings that you have, you'll find a lot of the leaders talking to each other
Yeah. Oh,
in ways that they can to be like, hey, perfect example is the Sunshine Corridor, right?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is like, we all know that for Sunrail, which is our commuter rail system, to be successful, we need to connect it to the airports.
right.
Because right now we don't have all the infrastructure in place to make it a thriving system.
Sure.
And I think you're finding most of the regional partners being about that. We had Mayor Demings recently had the Economic Summit, right?
Yeah.
And he had Mayor Dyer on there. He had Seminole County on there. He had Osceola County on there, kind of talking about as a region, how do we become more competitive? And so I do think that there is probably more conversations being had amongst these elected leaders to try to figure it out. At the same time, I think they're all challenged with things that are happening throughout our country, from growth to affordability to transportation to all those sorts of things. So it's trying to figure out both how do you meet your residents' needs and then also look at it from a larger perspective and a regional perspective.
Yeah, that
But
region.
there's not the vitriol and there's not the
This is mine.
Yes.
You stay over there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say there's a spirit of collaboration and partnership. I mean, UCF used to call themselves a partnership university. Mayor Dyer talks about all the time the culture of collaboration, and each one of them you'll find is dedicated to it.
I think it's massively important because even if you like, okay, you're Orange County, and you're like, well, I don't really care what happens in Osceola County. What happens in Osceola County matters to Orange County, and what happens in the city of Orlando matters to the rest of Orange County, right? So it is crossing those lines to make sure that it wins regionally, I think.
You can't solve a problem if you're in a silo.
I totally agree.
And these big issues, they can't silo it, like homelessness.
Yeah.
Homelessness doesn't just impact one city
Agreed.
or one county.
Yeah.
It crosses lines. Transportation, having a robust transportation system. You can't just have a robust transportation system in one place, right? Like you
Goes
just
10
can't have a
miles back
train.
and
Right.
forth. Yeah, exactly.
And so it is really important. And as we move forward, which I know we're going to talk about, the changes are coming. That's
Yeah.
something we're going to need to look at and kind of have dialogue around the types of leaders who want to collaborate and want to solve these problems in a more holistic manner.
Well, let's talk about that. So the next 2 years are huge from a political spectrum. We've got midterms. We've got a new mayor coming. We've got a lot of things happening, right? And so talk to us about the political landscape as you see it from a local level.
My goodness, this is going to be a doozy. I mean, what we know as we're sitting here today, what we know will completely change over the next 2 years.
That's right.
In 2026, we have major elections happening in Orange County. Even before that, you have, like you said, you have midterms, you have the governor's race, you have other things. So 2026 is going to be a massive year. From a hyper-local perspective, 2026 is going to be kind of bonkers, unprecedented, to be honest with you.
It's a lot of change.
It's a lot of change because what happened was the voters approved expanding the Orange County Commission from 6 to 8. And Orange County also has term limits. The city of Orlando doesn't. So we're going to be in this really fascinating position in 2026 where there's going to be 7 races on the Orange County ballot.
Oh my gosh.
Mayor Demings is term limited. As we know, he is running for governor, but his seat is open and we can talk about, who's running. And then you're going to have 6 races with only one incumbent running.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's all going to be all new faces, which is going to translate into all new staff, all new things. Essentially, of the 9 members who are going to be on the commission, there might be 3 that are returning.
Jeez, man.
And so it's going to be massive.
Yeah. And so how do you, every one of those people are going to come in with their own agenda and their own campaign promise and their own thumbprint that they want to put on the city and the county, right? How do you take that much change all happening at once and then not lose focus of a common vision? Because I do believe that that's part of the problem with any local politics or politics in general is just that they all want to be known for that one thing and you don't have a cohesive vision. And Orlando really needs that. I think that that's maybe part of the reason why downtown is still a little struggling and some of the other areas haven't fully reached their potential is because that not unified vision. So how do you take that much change and keep them on track?
Well, I think that's, sometimes people romanticize the federal elections and the state elections. And I think one is you have to spend a lot of time knowing the local candidates.
Sure.
And really getting involved and getting educated because you're going to have to ask them these sorts of questions. You're going to have to find people who are aligned with your vision, with the business community's vision, with your philanthropic missions, and hold them accountable.
Sure.
And so I think it's going to be a lot of due diligence. Again, it is going to be very difficult because there's 7 races happening in Orange County with multiple candidates. That's not even including the other big races that are happening.
So strip that out real quick. For people watching, because a lot of people they're not as into politics as you and I might be, right? And so
they're not political geeks?
They're not political geeks, right? I know, it's crazy, right? But when they're driving and they're stuck in traffic or they're driving and they see development or they can't afford a house one way or the other, they're they should have thought back to who they voted for or maybe just showing up to vote in the first place. Let's even start there, right? So why is this important and how can they figure out who candidates are their people?
Yeah. Look, I get it. And, I think people are really jaded right now and really frustrated. The political process has become very toxic and very negative. And I think some people just throw their hands up and I just don't even want to deal with this, right? And I think it's also become really partisan. And so people struggle to find parties that represent them. Right?
Yeah, sure.
We have extremes on both sides. And I think it's discouraging to a lot of people. And I think sometimes they just get frustrated and shut down. But I can say that 2026 is going to be one of the most important times in our region and in our country to decide how your vision aligns.
I totally agree.
And, I think it does take a little bit of work to find this. But, local chambers will be hosting many debates and candidate get-to-knows. The candidates, where you live, research the people that are running for your district. Even if you don't want to deal with the mayor and all the races that are on the commission, you could deal with, the commissioner that is your district. Here in Winter Garden, Commissioner Wilson won last time, and she's safe, and so she's in. But in the other districts, maybe District 2 or another district that abuts it, get to know what their vision is and where do they stand. Ask some questions. Where do they stand on growth? Where do they stand on affordability? Where do they stand on transportation? And understand that because I think it's important to show up and vote for candidates that are for smart growth. If we're not growing, we're dying. And if we're not growing, we don't have a tax base to reinvest. And again, I understand growth is a huge challenge, not only in our market, but in Florida. But it's a blessing.
It is. I mean, listen, I'd rather be growing and having new cool things all the time. That's the one I was talking to some other friends of mine who are in the same business and they live in, some other places in the country where things are a little bit boring. And they're like, well, yeah, you get to do what you do because there's always something going on. I'm like, We're really lucky that way. And that
100%.
There's always cool
By
stuff
the way,
going
if you
on.
think about it, just as a sidebar, when you think about it, the theme parks like literally host a Super Bowl every night.
Right.
I mean, with the amount of people that are going to the theme parks
Yeah.
and the productions and the things,
Yeah.
every night you can go to see like a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Every night can be 4th of July. Every night, the concerts and the events and the things, it is so energetic.
It really is.
But all of that also, it comes at a cost, right? And that's some of the quality of life issues.
Sure.
So back to it is like, I think you have to be really engaged. Local chambers will have it. Business groups will have it. Nonprofits will have it. And get involved.
You know what we should
Learn
do?
and listen and research.
We should have a town hall with all of them, get them all together, and I can do a little MC.
By the way, you should look, I think you have a great platform. Have them on the pod. Maybe be like, here's the people who are running for the different districts, and
Yeah.
maybe give each one 10 minutes and clip it together.
That's a good idea.
I'm happy to facilitate that
Okay,
in any
cool.
way. But I mean, I think you should do that and get exposed to this because again, you need to find people. And the questions would be like, where do you stand on working with the 11 cities in Orange County?
Sure.
Where do you stand on transportation? Where do you stand on housing? But you also have to make sure their plans are realistic.
Sure.
And so that's part of it. And, I think what we're having in Central Florida is an interesting thing where the rest of the state has turned more red. We're a little bit more blue.
Or more blue, yeah.
And so what you're going to find here is probably a little bit more of a battle between progressives and moderates. Democrats, what you're going to find here is people who have a more progressive perspective
Sure.
on things versus people that have a more moderate conservative. All Democrats. But
Sure.
I think that's going to be kind of the
choices.
line and the choices. But again, I think it's hard, but don't be passive. Like
Sure.
these races matter. And when you're choosing where you want to move, you want leaders that are aligned with whatever is important to you and that they're going to invest in a community and work with others and do that. And the other thing I would say is that also potentially work across party lines. It's great to be blue here, but the rest of the state is quite red.
Yeah.
And so
We heard that in Charlotte. They were
Yeah.
like, we're a blue city in a red state,
Yeah.
and we have to be able to work together. And if you're just going to be like, forget the other side, forget the other party, then you're just never going to do anything
You're
good
not.
for your constituents. And
You're
really, you're
not.
there to work for them. You're not there to get your own agenda passed. As long it's the residents that matter.
100%.
So in that, and it describes to somebody who might not know from a political perspective. Like I understand what a progressive and a moderate is, and yet how does that? I think of city and county government. They're there to make sure it's clean, that we grow safely, and the trash gets picked up. Right? It's not really not big social agendas, or is it?
Well, it's kind of interesting. In recent years, it has had a little bit more of a social side of it.
Yeah.
So, for example, LGBT issues.
Sure.
Central Florida is very progressive on that. We rank 100% on the Equality Index. Mayor Dyer was one of the first people to do civil unions. And so we have policies that try to protect our LGBT community.
Sure.
Now, to your point, local government isn't weighing in on the issue in Israel. Local government is not weighing in on women's reproductive rights. But you are looking for leaders that might support certain aspects of your social agenda.
Yeah.
But to your point, really what local government is about your trash, your public safety, and really job creation, economic development. They do create policies on housing and affordability on that front, on where affordable housing might be able to go via zoning and things of that nature.
Sure.
They do obviously impact transportation and other growth things. They do create policies for nonprofits and homelessness and things of that nature. They will create policies on public safety. And so, I think those are the sort of things where people will look. The reality about local government, though, is that most of the budgets are public safety. And so, because
Wow.
it's a huge component, if you start to look at the breakdown of local governments, because public safety is such a massive part of it, you're going to find that's heavily weighted to that.
And that was, I
so
remember-
it's also about how you manage the budgets.
Sure.
There's a fiscal component to running local government, as there is to everything about, there's certain things that are a general fund and how you operate a city. And then there's the extra funds, like a CRA, which is community redevelopment side, where you can invest in projects like Westcourt, or you can invest in projects near Camping World. Or there's TDT funding, right? Which we know, which in Central Florida we're very fortunate to get, which is called the Tourist Development Tax.
Yeah.
And the county commission determines how that money is going to be invested.
Sure.
But again, cities and counties are limited. There's states create a lot of laws, and there's a lot of things with preemption where we don't control things, which gets very confusing to a general voter.
does, yeah.
Again, I think it's about asking the questions, saying this is what I care about, whatever it might be, whether it's schools, whether it's roads, and understanding the candidates' positions on it, and understanding how that will impact your life, your region, and the entire market.
It matters. This is why I love the local government and the talk around it, because that I think impacts our lives almost more than federal does. I mean, from a day-to-day perspective,
100%.
Schools, roads, jobs. I mean, that's all right in our backyard every single day.
And you have access to them. Look, I think what's really great about local government is that you probably run into some of these people in the grocery store, or they're having community meetings, or at all of our local governments. You can show up and you can testify, you can speak, you can go to the meetings, so you can be really engaged in that. It's very accessible.
I love this. All right, so let's talk a bit about some of the positive things that are coming, right? So even beyond voting and everything else coming, there's some really cool projects, especially in that downtown corridor, which we know has so much opportunity and potential. What are some of the things you're excited about downtown?
There's a lot of things that I'm excited about downtown. Again, I know that it's been a tough patch for people, but you're starting to see people invest in downtown. One of the things that I'm super stoked about is travel and leisure, bringing 800 jobs downtown.
That's not a small number of humans.
It's not a small number of humans, and it's a publicly traded company.
Right.
And it is really exciting to have them in the core of our downtown and the impact it's going to have on our community.
And even just the beautification of that building on the outside, I started seeing you could start peeking inside and seeing how beautiful that's going to be once all of the scrims come down, and like even just walking and activating on the other side of the Kia Center, being able to see that many people come around. And we talk around this, like the chicken and the egg, like is it people that come down first or businesses first that would then serve those people? And I think at this point, Travel and Leisure is rolling the dice and saying, we're bringing a bunch of people downtown, and we hope that there's going to be shops and restaurants that open up kind of in that area to be able to serve them. And I think that that's exciting to see.
Yeah, well, I think workers want amenities, right?
They do,
and the chicken and egg
right.
is 100% correct, because I think part of our challenge, right, is post-COVID, the hybrid work dynamic has been hard, because how does a lunch restaurant, or a place that serves lunch, thrive when there's no office workers?
Correct.
And then the office workers will say, well, there's nowhere for me to have lunch, so I don't want to be downtown.
That's right.
But the truth is, younger employees not only want flexibility, but they want a vibrant downtown.
They do.
And so I think this investment from Travel and Leisure is massive. But what's cool about that, it kind of fits into the sports and entertainment corridor. So if you look at that, it's years in the making. And, that's the thing that I think we're fortunate about with Mayor Dyer and the City Commission, is there's been continuity of leadership. So while it's taken a long time, it's starting to happen. And you look at it, you have the Performing Arts Center, which is continuing to grow and thrive. And it is like a world
class,
Yeah, it is a world symbol of, best-in-class architecture, incredible shows, everything that one would want in their market.
That's right.
And so you start to walk, you walk from the Performing Arts Center, and then you walk through, and you're going to ultimately go under I-4, which is going to have a canopy project, which is going to be a really activated park below a highway.
Yeah.
And then you go over and you have the Kia Center, which again is just thriving on every front. And the Magic is consistently amongst the highest season ticket sellers in the country, right?
One of them,
so it's between the shows and the Magic and the things are happening. And then across the street, which I know you've covered, is Westcourt, which will be breaking ground next year.
Thank God.
I know. Finally.
But we got to talk to the developers there, and they were, I'd always guessed, I'm sure it's political climate, it's tariffs, but it's also, you don't know what things are going to cost. It's hard to build a $500 million development if you don't know what it's actually going to cost. And it sounds like they've kind of got to the place where they figured it out to where they now can move forward, which is really exciting.
Yeah, the economic winds have been a little bit dicey, but it is moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's going to be incredible, because they're going to have they're going to be able to host 1,000-person conference.
Yeah.
And we've needed that downtown. We're one of the largest downtowns without a conference center.
It's crazy.
And the convention center is a huge asset and an important asset, and it is continuing to drive our economy in many ways. However, people want a downtown conference center, and I think that's going to activate certain things in ways that we have not seen. Plus, they're going to have the live music venue and other things of that nature. But again, as you walk down the sports and entertainment corridor, you're going to have the Travel and Leisure with the 800 employees, and then you get to the Inter and Co Stadium, which is, just announced their partnership with the Football League, which is super exciting. Obviously, I got to give a shout out to the Orlando Pride,
Yes.
which is the national champions and one of the fiercest sports teams in the country.
In the country, that's right.
And they're in the playoffs again. Right. And so they've done something, I'll have to say, the boys have never done. Any of the teams, right?
Let's go, ladies.
And
that's
so,
right.
Let's go, ladies. But, I hope our community continues to support that. Yeah. And then you go, and it's really exciting what's happening with Camping World, right? And like
hopefully
the campus.
If we get the Jags during 27 and also Westcourt opens, that would there's going to be buzz downtown.
100%. The campus and what they're building over there with the field house and the improvements. So you're really starting, and it takes a long time to do that. We've dealt with recessions. We've dealt with other things. And here we are where the pieces are in play, and I think they're ready to launch. Yeah. And, we still have over, at Creative Village, you have EA, which is continuing to grow and thrive. Some of the best games in the country are coming out. Madden's coming out of Orlando. Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, like when I tell people, it's funny. Sometimes I tell people that I live in Orlando and they get excited, potentially that I have partnership with Disney.
Yep.
EA is also one where people flip out. People who work at EA. I'm like, yes, I do.
My son and I play Madden, and it's every time they go to break, they're like, we're taking it to Orlando to get to a break. And we always look at each other, we're like, how cool is that?
So cool, right? Ridiculous. Like, I don't know sometimes if people realize there's 1,000 people working in that.
Right.
I toured the building multiple times, and there's all those secret parts, and I'm always like, what's happening there? And it's just incredible, the innovation that is coming out there. Yeah. And look, hopefully something's going to happen with the Orlando Sentinel site, which is a 20-acre urban, potential future development. Sure. And if that can happen, again, then you're starting to have that. Mayor Dyer had always talked about downtown being hospital to hospital. And what you're seeing in the North Quarter is really exciting. Yeah. That is starting to...
and Advent and all the way down to ORMC.
So you're really starting to see, and one of the things I love about our community is that it's a really, it's driven by small businesses.
Yeah.
And I love all the unique proprietors, whether they're bar owners, whether they're restaurateurs. We're not filled with chains. So many times people will think we're just the land of chains.
That's what I thought when I moved here. I was like, because you go anywhere over by, 535 near Disney Springs, it's like Applebee's, Red Robin. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that just must be everywhere. But the moment you get outside of that bubble, you're like, there's actually world-class restaurants everywhere, which is a lot of fun.
Everywhere. And really passionate chefs. Yeah. And, obviously... Michelin has recognized. I mean, we have more than the Tampa market. Yep. And it's a pretty incredible foodie scene. I think, what is that show? Everybody Loves Phil or whatever. If everyone's feeding Phil. Yeah. But he did that incredible profile showing all the ethnic food and the diversity and the local proprietors. I mean, I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and there's nearly 60 on the guide now, which I think 5 years ago there were none or something like that. It was kind of wild to see what Visit Orlando has done, really just to show off. But then I think that the more people that realize it and then go visit those places, many of these chefs have multiple locations now, different concepts, and they're investing back in the city, which makes us all better.
Oh, like Sue and the Good Salt Group and all of them. I will tell you, I think I was sharing with you the other day, is that I used to know when I first moved here, when a new restaurant opened up, I knew about it and I was there I'd make sure I meet the chef and I could track it. I'd be like, oh, this new restaurant, because it was a slower time. Now, it's like I can't keep track. I can't eat at all the new restaurants. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. The foodie scene is really, really, really thriving here, and people are being very successful.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of shows the heart of our city, these small businesses that are opening up in the main streets or throughout our region and being quite impactful, like Rifle, which is a national brand, or Corksicle that is doing things, and other ones that are just awesome.
I love it. So moving forward, we look at 2-3 years from now. We have the downtown hopefully is starting to thrive and kind of uptick. What other projects outside of downtown are you excited about?
Well, you can never sleep on Lake Nona.
Yeah, I agree.
And you can never sleep on Sunbridge.
That's right.
And the fact that Tavistock invests in the way that they do is incredible. I mean, from the companies that they bring to the summits that they host to the clusters of thought leaders that are out there, and they have so much land. And it's only going to get better. Yeah. And it is, their proximity to UCF. And, one of the other things I would say, the proximity to the Space Coast.
Sure.
And how that will impact us. Again, last night they had 2 launches in front of a full moon.
Wild.
I mean, the other thing I think is crazy that I tell people all the time, I can see space launches from my house.
That's right.
And the thing that also I think is incredible is our relationship in the I-4 corridor. It's a mega region. I mean, Tampa and Orlando, and by the way, the Tampa and Orlando mayors have always had great relationships, the county leaders, and the opportunities for collaboration there and how we do that. I mean, the growth in Tampa and the growth in Orlando and the growth in Polk County is transformative.
It is.
And as we grow together,
a
I
mega
think that's
region.
going to be massive.
Yeah, I think the Bright Line, as soon as that comes over and around, if it goes to, as it goes down to Tampa, that connectivity, and then all of a sudden I-4 expands, it gets people coming back and forth. I think it's going to be really impactful.
Well, and even now, like I think something people might not realize is Tampa doesn't have enough hotel rooms. So when they host significant events, sometimes people are staying over here.
It's crazy.
There's a lot of synergy between the regions and a lot to learn from each other. And so as we continue to grow, it's like, how do we connect not only our counties, but how do we connect to Tampa and how do we connect to the Space Coast? Because the amenities and the economic opportunities we have here are the strongest in the state. Again, the other thing that I track really closely, which is tremendous, is, again, the Osceola County side, one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And the investment that they have made in the semiconductor space it's
very smart.
It's
very, very
so smart.
I mean, it went from kind of like, when I first moved here 10 years ago, it was 75% rural.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you've got new developments, but you've got new jobs coming, which they're starting to pivot in a really, I think, smart way, because you don't want just a rooftop bedroom community. That's not healthy and sustainable for long-term growth.
No, it's not. And they've taken it. They're balancing all the challenges. And they're also kind of an interesting thing going from an ag community to a, where they are. But, they're looking at doing their own performing arts center. They're creating like great retail opportunities. And so Osceola is one that is really exciting. A project that I think is quite cool, which I've shared with you, is the Four Roots project.
Yeah.
Another one, which is a whole side that kind of builds on our community's background, agrotourism.
Yeah.
We have an urban farm right 5 minutes from downtown. If you go there currently in their greenhouse, they have 9 different types of farming in the greenhouse, and they're creating 9 different types of farming on the outside. And their whole thing is, how do you modernize farming?
Yeah.
How do you create food for or a sustainable source of food? They're providing food for schools and for SeaWorld and doing things. And it's literally, there's nothing like it in the country.
They're getting the community involved, which is really cool as well, because I feel like some of those people would have no access to that otherwise.
Yeah.
Something a little bit different in terms of a reframe, which I think is really cool. And so, John Rivers and the whole Rivers team is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just something that, you look at something that's unique. It's another thing I get such joy about bringing people to, because I'm like, hey, come check this out. And they're like, wait, this is 5 minutes from downtown. We are leading ways on how to farm in this world, because so many farmers are shutting down every day. And how do they modernize? And look, John says it's really interesting. Food is like a national security deal.
It really is.
And also food is health.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have with some of our hospital partners and having this conversation about how you create an urban farm, how you modernize farming, how you protect farming, how you create food sources for low-income communities. And it's right here. Something I'm really proud of and very unique to our community.
If you had to wave a magic wand, like what's a frustration you still deal with in terms of all this growth or all the things that you're working on? If you had to wave a magic wand, you could solve one thing. What do you think that would be?
I really think the transportation issue is very challenging. I think, there's no dedicated funding for our bus system.
Yeah.
There
Why is that?
It's just how it was created many years ago. And we've tried to find different things through the state, and it just hasn't worked. So right now, with all the growth that we have, we don't have the ability to move people around. And especially some people who may not have cars.
Sure.
And so you have to kind of figure out how you're going to manage that. To me, I'm really fortunate. Look, I'm a downtown girl. I live, I work, I play, I'm downtown. So I really get the best of Central Florida in the sense that I have proximity to the Main Street districts. I can hop to here, Winter Garden, I can hop to Winter Park. And so for me, I'm privileged and fortunate in the sense of how I can engage in the community. But what breaks my heart is when I hear people having to take 3 buses to get to their job.
And it takes
Or
them
to
90
their
minutes
school and things.
Yeah.
And so how do you expect them to have economic mobility and financial success when they can't get to their jobs? And so to me, there's a lot of people who want to work. There's a lot of people who want to grow. And they are just hindered by certain cost of living things. So to me, I think the number one issue we're going to have to tackle here to really create the economy of the future is transportation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not, I know there was like a penny tax at one time that kind of got voted down. Is that something that you think is going to be on the ballot eventually?
So the county's actually going to be discussing it December 2nd.
Oh, that's
There's a
incredible.
conversation. They're kind of discussing two things: a transportation sales tax and also an infrastructure tax. I will applaud Seminole County, who very long ago identified that they needed an infrastructure tax, which is a little bit different. You can invest in capital projects, not only roads, but other infrastructure things. And so Seminole County has done that. And I think Orange County is looking at potentially considering that. You know, again, I know there is a lot of conversation about property taxes, but local governments really have limited funding sources. And so it's really prioritizing how you pay for things and how you deal with this growth.
Sure.
And so, yes, I think there's going to have to be conversations. I don't know if right now will be the time that the market and the voters are going to want to add additional taxes to their life.
Especially with this current cycle. We're
Yeah,
in,
this current cycle, you know, people are not having the easiest of times. But unfortunately, we have no way to pay for certain things.
Right.
And so we'll have hard decisions in the future. And I think that's going to be, you know, back to one of your questions. That's where leadership's going to matter. How do we fund these sorts of things? Because again, if you can't get people to jobs, then companies cannot grow.
Right.
And look, again, I think the next generation of workers, they like public transit and they want it. So to remain competitive, we have to also provide things that the next generation of workers will want.
Yeah.
And so looking at all types of infrastructure, I know they're dedicated to sustainability, they're, you know, mobility, other things of that nature, and making sure that we're meeting the needs of not only our existing workforce, but our future workforce.
So future workforce is another one, right? So you've been here for 22 years. 22 years in the future, what do you feel like, last thing we'll wrap up, is like, what do you hope Orlando looks like in the next 20?
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. You know, I hope that, you know, our skyline has dramatically changed over the last 20 years. And I know you've addressed that specifically. I'm hoping to see new buildings everywhere with a lot of corporate logos at the top.
Yeah.
But what I'm really hoping is they're corporate logos from companies we created, like a company like a Worth AI or other companies where businesses started here and thrived so much that they created a headquarter, that we create the sort of robust economy that allows them to thrive. I hope to see parks everywhere. I hope to have transportation systems that are connected. And I hope that people are just sincerely happy and proud of their communities. You know, you and I both know, those of us who choose to live here, you know, it's a choice.
It is.
And I think a lot of us work on a daily basis to enhance and improve. You know, I really applaud you for what you're doing with this podcast because you're telling a lot of different sides of our community, and we need more people to do that. But I really hope that people are thriving and happy and healthy and diverse, and that when we look around, we all feel proud of what we built together.
Great way to end it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.